we're going to look at Baldwin's filing. This is all still coming out of the Rust prosecution. Many of you watched it with me on day 3 of the Alec Baldwin trial in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Day 2, at the end of the day, I sat there and went, wow, the defense had a bad day. End of day 2, defense had a bad day in court. And then midway through day 3, we all went, oh, the prosecution did what? And then it got worse and worse and worse for the prosecution. And then the case got dismissed. I don't think I've seen a swing like that in a case ever, where it's gone from the defense saying, I would have completely done this case differently if I had understood the court's ruling to mean that, to the case being dismissed. So now we are after Kari Morrissey, the prosecutor, tried to appeal the dismissal multiple ways. She appealed it first to Judge Summer and then filed notice of appeal to the Court of Appeal. This case has been wild, but at the end of the day, Judge Summer dismissed the case against Alec Baldwin because of the prosecution's actions/inactions. Not because there wasn't evidence against Baldwin, not because the case shouldn't still go forward, because of the prosecution's actions. The case being dismissed was a sanction against the prosecution for not turning over evidence. That is why the court did what they did. Is it an extreme sanction? Yes. Is it often that that's what the court chooses to do in a discovery violation like that? No. But because this had been a consistent problem in this case, which the court lined out in their ruling, the court felt that this was the only way to protect the defendant's rights. So in summary, Kari Morrissey filed a multi-page notice of withdrawal of appeal when there were less than 2 paragraphs that were needed. The rest of the filing was to relitigate everything she didn't like that she put in her appeal and everything else she's filed. But now that there is no appeal pending, the case is finally final, which opens the door for Baldwin to sue literally everybody. After going through the 73 pages of Baldwin's lawsuit against Kari Morrissey and others, interestingly, Kari Morrissey is only sued in one of the 6 causes of action, with numerous causes of action against the elected district attorney, the prior special prosecutor, and multiple members of law enforcement. This motion read like Quinn Emanuel, Spiro, and the other attorneys from Baldwin's criminal team took all of their litigation from the trial and cut and pasted it into a civil lawsuit. They brought up all of the discovery issues that we've seen across multiple filings in litigation in the trial before it went to trial. They brought up the complaints that they had previously about how the grand jury was run, what Kari Morrissey did at grand jury, how Kari Morrissey went forward with a grand jury, which, again, arguments that they made in front of Judge Summer, and Judge Summer said, no, Kari Morrissey did not do anything wrong with regard to the grand jury. So some of these things have been litigated in motion in the trial court, different than bringing them up as civil violations of Baldwin's rights. It will be interesting to see when you have a judge ruling against the defense in a lot of these areas, how that will lay the groundwork for these deprivation of rights causes of action. But what's interesting there too is that ultimately Judge Summer dismissed the case against Baldwin for prosecutorial conduct. The court said, look, if this is not bad faith, it's as close as we get to bad faith, with the prosecution not turning over evidence. So is that alone going to be enough to lay the groundwork here? And then even though the individual motions were denied, that lays a pattern for the deprivation of rights lawsuit that's being brought here, and the defamation lawsuit, which is grounded in defamation per se, but this is going to be defamation per se against a public figure, which can be more difficult. It seems the grounds of defamation per se that Baldwin is attacking under is in the realm of unprofessional conduct and accusing someone of a crime. If the defamation case goes forward, we could end up in a position where the defamation case is necessarily going to litigate whether or not Baldwin was reckless with a firearm on set in a way that could have led him to be convicted for negligent manslaughter, even though the jury didn't decide that. The judge never decided that Baldwin was guilty or not guilty. The question of Baldwin's guilt of negligent manslaughter was never decided. The question of the prosecution's failure to turn over evidence is what was answered by the court's dismissal. So could we end up in a defamation lawsuit that ends up feeling like a criminal trial? Maybe. So I anticipate quite a lot of litigation here because we are going to see arguments over immunity for the prosecutors, for law enforcement, for the county, and for the commissioner board. And we are going to see then litigation about how we get into defamation when prosecutors are going to argue that they believe they could prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. We could end up in a situation where more evidence comes in than would come in a criminal trial because it goes to what the prosecutors knew when they were making statements, not what they would prove at trial. So we will see. But there is one more ruling that we need to look at very quickly. And this ruling from January 13th is from the presiding judge of the First Judicial District Court. Comes now Honorable Brian Bideshed, acting in his capacity as Chief Judge for the First Judicial District Court and pursuant to the New Mexico Code of Judicial Conduct, hereby recuses all First Judicial Circuit judges from the above captioned civil action. On the 13th, yesterday, Monday, January 13th, the presiding judge for the First Judicial District of New Mexico recused every single judge in the district from this case. So all of the judges are out. Every single one. Yep, everyone. I imagine it's because the district attorney's office that all of these judges work with is being sued. The Board of Commissioners in their district is being sued, and the entire county is being sued. So I imagine that these judges are like, we can't touch any of this. It needs to go to a different judicial district and different judges who do not interact with this DA's office, with the county commissioner office, and with the county itself need to take it up. This is not ours. Send this to a different district. We are not answering these questions. We are too involved. So the judge was like, yeet, send it to a different district. So it will go to a different judicial district when the judge in charge of all of it decides. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.